and I said we got to change something. So in this situation, we had a short test on radicals and then a short test on rational expressions. Rational, the root word for rational is ratio, which basically means expressions that are a fraction. So we want to learn how to deal with expressions that are a fraction. And fortunately, you've actually seen some of this before. 54x squared over 24x. We've dealt with dividing monomials before. Do you know the number that divides evenly into both 54 and 24? 6, yeah. If you divide 54 by 6, you get 9. You divide 24 by 6, you get 4. And if it's x squared over x, you're going to end up with x in the numerator. So if things are written as multiplication, we can cancel stuff out. So notice in this situation, 8x squared times x minus 3 over 4 times x minus 3. This is the same thing. I'm only going to write this once so you can understand. 8x squared over 4 times x minus 3 over x minus 3. That means the same thing. And what is x minus 3 over x minus 3? Something over itself is 1. So you can see these then reduce to 1. We don't say that they go away or they disappear. They reduce to 1. So it's 1 times 8x squared over 4, which 8x squared over 4 obviously is 2x squared. Now in letter C, it's different because it's not written in factored form. Before you simplify, you must write it in factored form. It must be written in factored form. So what can you factor out of 5x minus 20? You can factor out 5. And you're left with x minus 4. What can you factor out of 10x squared minus 40x? 10x. And you're left with x minus 4. Notice in this situation that you now have an x minus 4 over x minus 4. Those do reduce to 1. And you're left with the expression 5 over 10x. 5 over 10 reduces to 1 over 2, so it's 1 over 2x. People try to make up all sorts of mathematics that is incorrect in letter D. People try to just start canceling off the x squareds. That is completely incorrect. You can't reduce until you've written it in factored form. It's as simple as that. You have to write it in factored form. So let's start with the bottom. How does the bottom factor? Close. Because it's a plus 6, we have to have a minus and a minus. And then the negative 2 and the negative 3 make negative 5. In the top, 9 minus x squared, that's going to reduce to a 3 minus x and a 3 plus x. Do you see anything that's the same? I mean, the x minus 3 and the 3 minus x and x minus 3, those are almost the same, aren't they? So this is a trick. This is kind of the one complicated thing you have to see today. What could we factor out of 3 minus x to make it look like x minus 3? We could factor out a negative 1. If you factor a negative 1 out of negative x, it becomes positive x. And if you factor negative 1 out of 3, it becomes a negative 3. So if they look identical as subtraction, they're just flipped around, you can factor out a negative 1, and then they are now the same. So now the x minus 3 and the x minus 3 do reduce to 1. And I have a negative quantity, 3 plus x over x minus 2. So that's simplifying basic rational expressions. There's two other things we want to do today. We want to multiply them, and then we would also like to divide them. We want to multiply them, and we'd like to divide them. I want to know from you, because there's two ways to do this next one, I want to know which way you prefer. The first way to do it is to multiply straight across. And when you multiply straight across, you get 12x over 18x. 12 and 18 are both divisible by 3. So if you divide by 3, you get, actually they're both even divisible by 6, aren't they? So I'll divide by 6 and I get 2 over 3, and notice how the x's cancel. That's the first way to do it. Can I show you another way? Sometimes people say cross multiply. It's not cross multiply, it's cross cancel. Look at how 3 over 9 can reduce. What is 3 over 9 reduced to? 1 over 3. And what is 4x over 2x reduced to? 2 over 1. So notice how you get 2 over 3. Either way, you're going to get 2 over 3. So you can do the first way or the second way. Which way do you prefer? You like the second? Seems like probably about 2/3 of people like the first, but 1/3 of people like the second. It's up to you. And letter B, I can cross cancel right away. Notice that the x plus 2 and the x plus 2 reduce to 1. And now you're left with 4 times x minus 1 over 12. That will reduce. 4 and 12 are both divisible by 4. X minus 1 divided by 3. But before you start reducing, you need to make sure that you have things factored. X plus 5 does not factor. 3x plus 1 does not factor. What can you factor out of 9x plus 3? So factor out your 3, and you're left with 3x plus 1. What does x squared minus 25 factor to? X plus 5 and x minus 5 as the difference of two squares. And now you can look at what will reduce to 1. X plus 5 divided by x plus 5 reduces to 1. And 3x plus 1 divided by 3x plus 1 reduces to 1. So notice you have 3 on top, and you have x minus 5 in the bottom. I want you to try letter D on your own. Go ahead and give letter D a shot on your own. All right, as you glance at this, I want you to see that I factored the top to x plus 3 times x minus 1. The bottom I factored to x minus 2 times x plus 1. This 2 minus x, I'm going to factor out a negative 1. And as I do, I'm left with a positive x and a minus 2. I factored it out so that it would match up with the x minus 2 in the denominator here. Notice how x minus or x plus 3 and x plus 3 reduce to 1. And x minus 2 and x minus 2 also reduce to 1. So I'm left with a negative x minus 1 over x plus 1. That's that. All right, let's do the last piece, which is dividing. Next, what do you prefer? Adding or subtracting? Morgan, what do you prefer, multiplying or dividing? Our brains are naturally built, naturally wired to add and multiply. They're not naturally built to subtract and to divide. Those are more challenging. If you ever felt like those were more challenging for you growing up. That's very normal and it's okay. All right? So, I don't ever like to divide rational expressions. Let me help you understand here. Suppose I had this expression. Suppose I had 1/2 divided by 9/2. We don't divide two fractions. Instead, what do? Multiply by the. So we do the same thing here. When you see dividing rational expressions, we write it as 2x over 3 times, and it's 12 over 6x squared. So that's all that's different with dividing these. I would like to reduce by looking at the 12 and the 3. 12 over 3 reduces to 4 over 1. And 2x over 6x squared, that reduces to 1 over 3x. As you reduce those and multiply, you can see you get 4 over 3x. As you look at example B, I have x minus 2 times x plus 2 over x plus 1. And instead of divide, I write multiply, and I flip it. X times x plus 1 over x minus 2. Which ones will reduce? My x plus 1s. My x minus 2s, I'm left with an x times x plus 2. So if you know how to factor, which many of you did a pretty good job factoring on your Chapter 3 test, hopefully you can do a pretty good job with this. Letter C, again, I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal, x squared minus 1 over x plus 3 times x squared minus 9 over x plus 1. Now that I've written in that form, I will factor. What is x squared minus 1 factored to? Yep, x plus 1 times x minus 1. That sits over x plus 3. And then x plus 3 times x minus 3 over x plus 1. X plus 3's reduce, x plus 1's reduce. I'm left with x minus 1 times x minus 3. And our last example for the day. X squared plus 4x plus 3. X squared plus 2x minus 8. And we will multiply by the reciprocal, 2 minus x over 3x plus 3. How does x squared plus 4x plus 3 factor? Looks like I have a plus 1 and plus 3. In the denominator, I multiplied to plus 4 and minus 2. Uh-oh, 2 minus x, what can you factor out? That negative 1, and I'm left with x minus 2. And on the bottom, notice you can factor out a positive 3. X minus 2's reduce. X plus 1's reduce. And then this is sometimes where people make mistakes. You know, you got to kind of be neat and organized and work so you can see what's left over. I do have a negative up top, so it's a negative quantity x plus 3. And then in the bottom, I have a 3 here, so it's 3 times x plus 4. So it's very easy for people to forget about some of those little pieces that are sitting around. And that's that. Okay. So let me show you what you can be working on. On this page right here, it is simplifying, multiplying, and dividing rational expressions. And then tomorrow, your assignment, again, as I will not be able to be here to teach you, your assignment tomorrow will be the second page. Got that? So today you can focus on that first page, and then tomorrow you can focus on that second page. And then Thursday we will move on. Okay. I'll post up the answer key up here.